What's going on, guys? My name is Triforce Addiction. Welcome back to another COD Mobile video. So today we are going to be discussing one of the buffs for this new Season 6 update. And this is probably the biggest buff that we have basically for this entire season. A lot can agree that the patch notes for this season were kind of uneventful, like it doesn't really change too much about the meta of this game. But with the exception of potentially one weapon, and that of course is the KN44. So there was a nerf to the USS-9, and I will discuss that in a later video, but I want to talk about the biggest change that we had in the patch notes, which of course was this weapon, and for a good reason. So the KN44 has gone through many changes. If you guys have been around since the beginning of this game, the KN44 has always been a solid assault rifle, basically throughout the entire time the game has been out. You know, it's not a weapon that you could really go wrong with a lot of the time. And for these past, I think, like 2 years, the KN44 was given a 3-shot capability to the head as well as the chest. And because of that fact, I always considered this weapon to be a lot better than the LK24. LK24 is usually the rival of the KN44. A lot of people usually compare them together. But for me, I've always personally liked the KN44 better, only because it has better 3-shot capability. But now that 3-shot capability actually got increased to the lower arms. So the lower arm multiplier may not sound important to a lot of people. Obviously, when you think about that, you probably think nothing of it. But the lower arm multiplier is actually pretty important as well, because when the enemy is holding the gun, and if they're in front of you, their lower arm is a lot more vulnerable than their upper arm. So the lower arm is usually something that you're going to hit a lot. And because of, the fact that there are a couple weapons that have that 3-shot potential when you hit in the chest, sometimes it gets blocked off or it becomes very inconsistent because a lot of the time you're hitting the lower arm. With weapons such as, the KN44 before this update, or even the Kilo 141, that chest multiplier is kind of there just to help you in rare circumstances. So you might kill an enemy just a little bit faster. I would say most assault rifles with a moderate fire rate probably has this type of ability. And I think as of recently in this update, the HBR now has that ability as well. However, they mostly don't go higher than that when it comes to moderate fire rate type assault rifles, just for the fact that they don't want to just make them too overpowered. I guess they decided to do an exception with the KN44 because now the lower arm multiplier is now enough to secure a 3-shot kill. So let's say you land all those 3 shots on the lower arm, you could still kill them. The only multiplier that has not been affected is the upper arm multiplier. So basically there is going to be a little bit of inconsistency there, but it's much less so because the lower arm multiplier is now going to give you that benefit of a 3-shot. So why is this important for the KN44? So basically, if you guys don't know, the initial range of the KN44 extends pretty far, over 20 meters by default. And if you do want to stack some range, you could actually get it up to over 30 meters. So that is pretty important, especially if a weapon could 3-shot pretty well as this one. And it's also the fact that a lot of slower firing weapons such as the Odin or, any slow firing weapon that kills in 3-shot like the Man of War is going to be obsolete because of the KN44's capability. Again, yes, there is a chance that you could get a 4-shot kill if you do manage to land 1 shot in the upper arm, but the odds are pretty much gonna be with, just you getting a 3-shot kill. There are other changes to the KN44, but they're not really that important. There was one for the recoil of the Ranger barrel, but again, this weapon doesn't really jump that much, so I don't think that's a big deal. But having a simple change as a lower arm multiplier to give you a 3-shot capability does kind of push this weapon a little bit further in the meta. As of right now, we're kind of under a grace period because, this update just came out almost a day ago. And a lot of people are not really going to discover the fact that the KN44 is now buffed. So I think at some point, whenever Bobby Plays or Ferg makes a top 10 weapon video, I'm pretty sure there's almost a guarantee that the KN44 is going to be within that top 10 or even the top 5. Is it going to beat the USS-9? Obviously not. I think the USS-9 is still going to reign supreme. Of course, it's a little bit weaker, but I would say that this might actually be a good alternative option. In terms of also ARs, like the AR type of meta, or I guess the top ones, I'm not really that sure. I think maybe it could beat the Type 19 now, but I can't be too certain of that. I think at the end of the day, player reception kind of plays a role into this because some people might actually want to continue using the Type 19 over this. But again, we're still very early into this season's update, so I don't really expect any videos to be made other than this one for maybe a week or so. I think Ferg and Bobby Plays might not make a video right off the bat because the three line rifle hasn't really been released yet. But once they do have their hands on it, they're probably going to say that the three line rifle is better than the Tundra, which basically is at this point. But yeah, the consistent three-shot kill of this thing for like over 30 meters, I think it's what's going to make this weapon very viable in ranked, especially. I'm not sure if this also affects BR by any chance, but I don't even know if the KN44 is even in ground loot for BR at the moment. But if it is, yeah, this thing's going to be quite deadly. Unless they didn't change that body multiplier thing for BR, maybe it could have been an MP only thing, but yeah, I'm picturing this KN44 to have a lot more usage this season. But anyways, let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. I'll see you guys next time.